Imagine you spend thousands of dollars on an original piece of artwork, a Vincent van Gogh, somehow you have the money to buy one of those or something. So now you have it and you're like, yes, all right. And then you go to your 3-year-old, hey, do you want to color on this with crayons? You can trace the lines. Would you do that? No, you would not let your kids, stick Play-Doh to this beautiful work of art or something. You would find a way to protect it. You'd put it in a place of honor in your house or something and make sure no one messes it up, right? Now, Paul continues his argument in verse 18. In verse 18, he says, avoid sexual immorality. Every sin that a person can do is committed outside the body, except those who engage in sexual immorality commit sin against their own bodies. Now, what is Paul saying here? What does he mean? Well, he does not mean that sexual sin is worse than all the other sins that you can think of. It's not worse in terms of God's grace or something like, oh, you need extra grace for that, for sexual sin. That's not what Paul is saying. Forgiveness and healing is available for any and every sin through Jesus. But Paul does mean that sexual sin has a unique quality to it, meaning it impacts us in a way that other sins may not. Sexual sin damages the integrity of a person. Your body is not a shell that carries your soul. It's part of your very self, part of what makes you you. Your body is important. And so when you use sexual acts casually or out of the context of marriage, then you're telling lies with your body in a way. You're saying, I'm giving you all of me, when actually you're not, because you're not in a covenant marriage with them. You haven't actually devoted your life to that person. So you may just be acting selfishly, and that disintegrates your inner wholeness. And also, like I just mentioned, with the chemicals released in our brains, it fuses you to another person. And if that bond is broken, part of us tears away with them. And then in the next verse, Paul proclaims in verse 19, he says, or don't you know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you? Don't you know that you have the Holy Spirit from God, and you don't belong to yourselves? You have been bought and paid for, so honor God with your body. When we read those words, maybe it doesn't sit well with some of us. Like when Paul says, you are not your own, you're bought with a price. Like, what is Paul saying? Excuse me, I am my own man, right? I am free and nobody owns me. For a culture that in America, we prize autonomy. We prize freedom above everything else. My body, my choice, my truth, my freedom. And so Paul's words can feel offensive or just wrong. Like, yeah, say whatever you want, Paul. That's not true. We bristle at the idea that we don't belong to ourselves. But I want to encourage you to think about it for a moment. Yeah, I think if you look around, you would realize that absolute autonomy is actually an illusion. We all live under some master, whether it's our own desires or our peers or our culture or our own anxieties. The question is not, am I free? You're not free. The question is, whom or what do I belong to? There is something that is pulling you in one direction or another. To whom or what do I belong to? And so Paul's answer is, for those that follow Jesus, you belong to Jesus, the one who loves you more than you love yourself. And so that's good news. You belong to the one who gave his life for you, to the one who promises freedom, not slavery. To belong to him is to not lose yourself. It's actually to find yourself. And this is really important in our cultural moment, because there are many who wrestle deeply, very deeply, with their sense of identity in their own bodies. For some, it may take the form of gender dysphoria. It's a painful disconnect between how they feel and the body that God has given them. And that struggle is real, and it deserves compassion, not dismissal or condemnation. But with that in mind, Paul reminds us, he's saying, our bodies are not accidents. Our bodies are not prisons. They are temples of the Holy Spirit. They are meant for the Lord and the Lord for the body, which means that even when we feel out of sync with ourselves, our truest identity is not in how we feel. It's in who we belong to. That is where we find our identity. And so who do we belong to? To the one who bought us at an infinite cost. To the one who will one day raise up our bodies renewed and glorified and free us from all brokenness and all pain. So here's the choice that we basically see is you can live like your body is disposable, a tool for pleasure, something, or maybe something to escape. My body's a prison. I need to escape it and, ignore or argue with what I am. Or you can live like your body is valuable and priceless, purchased and indwelled by God himself. God lives inside of those that follow him. That's a beautiful thing. So think of it like this, maybe, an analogy is, imagine you spend thousands of dollars on an original piece of artwork, Vincent van Gogh, somehow you have the money to buy one of those or something. So now you have it, and you're like, yes, all right. And then you go to your 3-year-old, hey, do you want to color on this with crayons? You can trace the lines. Would you do that? No, you would not let your kids, stick Play-Doh to this beautiful work of art or something. You would find a way to protect it. You'd put it in a place of honor in your house or something and make sure no one messes it up, right? And so Paul says it's the same thing about you. Jesus paid everything for you. The life of God is what your life is worth. His Spirit now lives in you. So when you use your body for sexual immorality, whether it's with another person or by yourself in some way, you're treating something that's priceless like it's cheap. I just want to tell you this morning, you are worth more than that, okay? You're worth more than that. So let's circle back to that key question I introduced earlier. What does love require of me? It's not just a helpful filter, it's the ultimate filter. Because Jesus said that's the greatest commandment. And so the difference, as we talked about, our culture says love is a feeling, but, so if I feel attracted, if I feel in love, it must be good, it must be right. But Jesus says, no, love is self-giving. Love seeks the good of the other, even if it costs me something. So that changes the conversation. Because when I ask, what does love require of me, I can't say, what do I want? What can I get away with? How far can I go? It's how do I honor God with my body? How do I protect the soul of another person? How do I live with integrity so my body tells the same story as my heart and my faith? So let's apply this to your life. Let's get super practical. So what if you're single? If you're in the room or watching online, you're single. Okay, what does love require of me? Love requires patience. Real love says, I'm not going to take from you what isn't mine to take. I will honor you and your future spouse, even if that future spouse turns out to be me. You guys are coming up a little early, just letting you know. So love waits not because waiting is easy, but because love protects. And so this is true whether you're temporarily single or if you're single for the rest of your life. There is a sacredness to celibacy. And so what if you're dating? If you're dating, love requires boundaries. Love doesn't pressure. Love doesn't see how close it can get to the line. Love asks, how can I care for you in such a way that no matter what happens in our relationship, if you walk away from this relationship, you're closer to Jesus and you're not carrying any scars from me. So love requires boundaries if you're dating. If you're engaged, the reality is love requires restraint. A wedding covenant is more than just a wedding license or a wedding party or something. It's the public lifelong promise before God and before others that says, I belong fully and only to you. And that's what a wedding ceremony is. And if we haven't had that wedding ceremony, then I don't fully belong to you yet. So love practices restraint when you're engaged because it understands that intimacy without the covenant is a contradiction. It's saying with your body what you haven't yet said with your whole life. So a promise to get married is not the same as being married. Engagement is beautiful, but it's still a not yet part of your life. One of you could still walk away from the engagement. I've seen it happen. Morning of the wedding, someone walked away. It's possible, even though rare. But even you're like, oh, that would never happen to me. We're committed. We love each other. Even if you're both deeply committed, you haven't actually made that covenant yet. And the level of intimacy should never exceed the level of commitment. So if the wedding date is far away, like, oh, we're engaged and the wedding's so far away, I don't know how we can do this. Let's have a conversation after service. We can have a quick ceremony so that you can align your life with God's way. I'd love to help you with that. And then you can still have the wedding. It's a celebration later, but we don't have to put off our obedience to Jesus. But what if you're married? I'm married, so this doesn't apply to me. No, love requires giving, not taking. In marriage, sex isn't about getting my needs met. It's about serving and uniting with my spouse. And so love asks, how can I give myself for you and to you? Not how can I get what I want from you? The best marriages are the ones where both spouses live with a posture of giving. Now, in case I've missed a certain category, if you're human, which I think that's everyone in this room, I hope, love requires holiness. Love refuses to cheapen what God calls sacred. So purity is not about shame or restriction. It's about living free and whole and aligned with God's design. Love glorifies God in the body because the body belongs to him. So do you see how this works? So whatever your stage of life you're in, love gives clarity. If you're single, love requires me to wait. If I'm dating, love requires me to protect. If I'm engaged, love requires me to restrain. If I'm married, love requires me to give. If I'm human, love requires me to glorify God with my body. Because love always tells the truth with the body. Love never lies, it never uses, it never cheapens. And so when you finally see it through that lens, sexual purity is not about repression, it's about liberation. It's not about shame, it's about the truth. It's not about what you can't do, it's about who you were made to be. Now, some of you may be listening this morning and you're thinking like, okay, whatever, like I've already messed up, I've already crossed the line, I've already made these mistakes, so, whatever, I'm hopeless here. If that's you, I want you to hear me right now, that you are not damaged goods. You are not beyond the reach of God's love. You're not beyond the reach of God's restoration. The gospel isn't just good news for those that have never messed up. It's good news even more so for those of us that have messed up. At the cross, Jesus bore every sin, including our sexual sins. Every regret, every failure, every moment of shame. And by his resurrection, he offers us forgiveness and cleansing and the power to live in a new life. And so sure, past actions may have caused some damage in your life, and I'm so sorry for that. You may be experiencing some of the natural consequences of that, but God can heal anything. He can restore anything. We can start fresh. So Paul didn't write 1 Corinthians to condemn them. He wrote it to call them back to who they really are and who we really are, beloved sons and daughters of God. When you read the Gospels, Jesus met people who were caught up in sexual sin, and he didn't shame them. Like if you read John chapter 8, there's the story of the woman caught in adultery. Woman caught in adultery. And the Pharisees drag her before Jesus and say, the law says we should stone her. What do you say, Jesus? If you read that story, you see Jesus stoops down to meet her. He stands up to defend her. And he lifts her up to live free. He says, those who have no sin, you can throw the first stone. And so everyone eventually walks away because they all know they're not perfect either. And so then he asks her, he says, woman, where are your accusers? And she says, they've gone. And Jesus says, I don't condemn you either. So go and sin no more. And that's the message that I want you to hear this morning. It's not, Jesus does not affirm all the things that we're doing. He doesn't say, it's okay, I'll forgive you, so just keep doing it because I've got endless forgiveness. Jesus says, sin no more, stop doing it. But also, I don't condemn you. So those two things are important together. I don't condemn you, so go and sin no more. That is the love and truth and grace and forgiveness and mercy that Jesus gives us. So that's the same call for you today, that you are not your past. You are not your worst mistake. You are not what was done to you. You belong to Jesus, and he is making you new.